Nice to see everybody here. What we have in mind for today is to talk about the data that we're seeing as a company and give you a sense for how that data is connected to what's been happening related to COVID. So we're going to go through a couple of different examples. We're going to look at Italy, we're going to look at Spain. We'll also look at some countries in Asia, South Korea, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Singapore, and look at different reactions and different incidents of the virus. And what we want to do is give you a sense for the effect so far, and then collectively try to form a picture of what's going to happen next. So as we look at the States right now, we're seeing some tactics that have already been applied in the US, in Europe, particularly around social distancing, quarantining, and we want to show you what happened, what has happened already, where that's been applied in terms of both traffic and conversion. So we have a presentation that I'm going to start sharing. Give me a second here and we'll pull it up. Can everyone see that presentation?
Yes.
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 Okay, great. So our plan, as we started the year and we were planning our user conferences, which are an opportunity for us to talk with people who use Vendo about what we're doing and about how the tools that we use can be, the tools that we develop can be used in your business to help you reach your potential. As we were planning the year, we were thinking about things like, where should we go? Should we go to London, to Prague, Budapest, Montreal, LA? We really didn't see this one coming. And so as it has happened, we decided that we would throw together the knowledge that we have internally, the data that we can see across the industry, and share it with everyone and have this conversation. So, so COVID-19, the Vendo User Conference. The agenda for today is to look at the data that we have and then to forecast going forward. So we've developed two hypotheses looking at the data for what's going to happen next. The first hypothesis is what we call last man standing, where the people in this room, the people who operate e-commerce companies that are selling digital goods, will benefit from people being at home, from having more time to spend on their computers. But if this were to go on to a fully apocalyptic scenario, that we would be the last man standing, but that's not really an ideal situation, of course. So that there would be a sort of burst of money being spent initially, these sort of small dollar amounts. Then as people become more concerned about their economic security, that they'll be spending less, and then as they have less and less money, that could be extremely bad for all of us. The second hypothesis is a short dip, and this is what we're seeing in the 4 Asian countries that I mentioned earlier, Singapore, Hong Kong, South Korea, and Taiwan. So first, I want to give an introduction to how we're going to approach this. Every piece of data, every number needs context. And we're going to provide context in a couple of different ways. We're going to be comparing, when we look at KPIs like conversion and traffic, we're going to be comparing periods before and after events. So we're going to be looking at when a country was quarantined, what were the conversion rates before, what was after. Then we're also going to provide additional context by comparing it with what happened in the stock markets, what happened in the economies of these different countries. So this number 25 will have some real significance for us as we go forward. 25% plus or minus. We've seen markets drop around this range, 25% globally, and then we've also seen increases across Vendo of 25% in terms of sales and revenue. So the way that you can see all of this data yourself for your specific business is by logging into the back office, entering your username and password. And as soon as you log in, you'll have a range of different options to choose from, and you can choose data tools there. It says data tools beta. We're using the kind of Google approach on beta, where they keep it around way too long. It's a tool that's been released and is used regularly by many, many clients. So don't worry about the beta label. So once you log in, the first thing that you're going to be able to do is select and compare. Everything that we're showing you today is coming from selecting one group of data and comparing it to another. So that's how we know that there's a 25% difference in traffic or sales after an event. So the way that you'll do that is, as you log in, you'll click on filters, and here are your filtering options, and you can choose the date range and compare it to another date range. You can choose different products or sites that you have, locations, types of traffic, and then you'll immediately get a comparison across all of the KPIs in your business. So conversion rate, revenue, lifetime value, risk, all of these things will be compared. So let's start with Italy, where we've had a major issue, outbreak. There was a progressive shutdown in Italy, starting in the north and extending to the whole country. We're choosing the date in which the shutdown was first announced, March 9th. This was an overnight announcement, which I think shocked a lot of us. And it had a huge effect on the Milan Stock Exchange. So that was over the weekend. So you see a slight pause there as you go to the 10th, and then it fell strongly as soon as markets opened again. There was some worrying signs before. It's interesting to look at the kind of curve of this graph, the stock exchange, and compare it with this darker blue line, which is almost the inverse. So here what you're seeing is traffic to join pages, so to the payment pages that are hosted by Vendo, and it really mirrors the figure up above. So bouncing along and then reverses. And that's something that you're going to see throughout as we look at the country, as we look at the different countries. So traffic up 25%, market down 25%. Conversion was flat, so so a 25% increase in traffic translated directly into a 25% increase in sales. The member net change, this is a figure that tells you every day how many new members do you have and how many have canceled. And to see a members net change of plus 45% across the Vendo universe tells you that fewer people are canceling than before. So let's move on to Spain. Spain is following the Italian approach with some delay. So March 14th, we had Italy at March 9th. So here you see a kind of longer view, but the same really terrible drop around the decision in Spain to quarantine and to socially isolate. And then you see a similar, there's some variance there, but then a similar kind of jump up as well. As more people are at home and purchasing, and it matches the same scale. So traffic up 25%. In Spain, we also saw an increase in conversion of 25%, which is really welcome, obviously. That's not something that we saw in Italy, so we're seeing some variation in behavior. The members net change is way up. So for this period, you're seeing far fewer cancellations than before. So this is a really large number, 300%, but it's showing you a big swing as more people are buying. So 25% increase in traffic, 25% increase in conversion, and far fewer people are canceling than ever before. So let's move on to our Asian countries, South Korea, Singapore, Taiwan, and Hong Kong. They took a very different approach. The biggest difference I think that's relevant to us is the lack of quarantine and social isolation. So they were able to test more people, and they were able to track people who had the disease. There's some amazing stories about how they're using credit card data, and they're using facial recognition systems in order to find out who has the disease and who they reached out to. And that lack of quarantine really shows up in the numbers. So here we're going to show you before, 10 days before and 10 days after. So traffic is not up nearly as much. If people can socialize and they can be out and they're not in front of their computers and we don't have opportunities to sell to them. Conversion was up, but not nearly at the rate that we saw in the European countries. So that was immediately before and after. What happened 30 days after and 60 days after? We now have some time to see the effects. And after 30 days, the bump, the increase maintained in terms of traffic and conversion after the initial lift. After 60 days, it returned to normal. So the bump is now down. So when we were talking about these two hypotheses at the beginning, the brief dip versus the last man standing, these four countries are representing the brief dip approach. So let's look at America, the US. This is, I think for most of us, our largest market. Very significant drop in the stock market, as we've all seen, around that 25% mark. However, in the US, we haven't seen the social isolation yet. It's just announced today in California that the governor is requiring everybody to stay at home or shelter in place, as they're calling it. So based on what we've seen so far, we can expect significant increases in sales in the 25% range from that area. So during this period, we haven't seen an increase in traffic, and we have seen conversion go up. So perhaps reflecting some anxiety about what's happening. So the big question is what will happen during the quarantine? And based on the historical data that we've seen, we can expect significant increases for our businesses. So going back to Vendo data tools, I want to highlight a few things that will help you track your business during this time. The first one is alerts and drivers. So alerts and drivers allows you to see how your business is changing. This is daily revenue, and then what caused that change. So these kind of red marks on either side give you a chance to see where you're in a statistically really unusual place. So this is yesterday's revenue for our demo group, which is some anonymized different sites. And then it tells you why. So what happened? What drove the change? And so that you know what to focus on. And in this case, sign up revenue is what created the change for you. The others had a fairly minimal effect. Rebill revenue was contributing, but not as significant as sign up revenue. What we've just shown you in the presentation is a kind of very extensive benchmarking on a country by country level. We also have built into data tools benchmarking, which helps you to see how very similar sites to yours are performing and on various KPIs. So here you see lifetime value. You also have conversion rate, members net change. All of those things are built in so that you can every day kind of see how you're performing compared to other similar companies. This is particularly valuable because we're in a very volatile time. Risk, one of the thoughts that we have is that as this goes on longer, there may be some real economic hardship, and that could drive an increase in refunds and chargebacks. And the way that we've been thinking about this is to track it very carefully and then implement changes to our risk system if we see this start to spike. Obviously, it's a delayed indicator, but we have different countries at different stages of this COVID response. And so we're using that information to inform how we handle risk and which strategies and tactics we deploy. So in the Vendo data tools, you can see a really extensive report on risk with forecasting, which lets you see what your results are likely to be. This is updated every 15 minutes, and the forecasts include all of your sales and the chargebacks as they come in, chargebacks and refunds as they come in. So next steps, we're going to continue to share information. We're going to discuss the right format in which to do that. We're also going to send a survey after this Vendo User Conference to find out what kind of information is most valuable for you as you're running your business, so that we can keep you as informed as possible. And I want to end with an admonition to wash your face and don't touch your hands, which we've been hearing all over the place. So thank you for your attention.